Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming into the pod. We don't have Corey this week, but still, we're going to talk about that week 1 loss to the Green Bay Packers. We're also going to preview the Bucs. Let's bring in a very special guest. You might know him from the BearsWire, followed at the BearsWire. You might know him from the Bear Down Shy Pod, or you might have seen him on Football Night in Chicago very recently. This dude's as dialed in as it gets, and I'm so excited to have him on today. It's Brendan Sugrue. Hello, Brendan. How are you?
What's up, Joey? It's so exciting to talk to you finally. I know we've been going back and forth a little bit. I'm a big fan of you guys and Believe in Bears with Corey. So yeah, it's great to talk with you, but it's also terrible because we have to talk about just the dreadfulness of what's happened this past week, man.
I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary of joining Twitter, and you were one of my early follows. Not only you dialed in, you have great analysis, you have a great sense of humor. We started talking back and forth. We kind of developed a little bit of an internet friendship, and here we are. I feel terrible, man. I feel like I'm inviting you over for dinner, but then I tell you that the toilet's broken. You know what I mean? For a first appearance, this is not the way I wanted this to go, Brendan. But let's kick it off like this. Look, we are going to get to the keys. We are going to roll it forward and talk about how the Bears could, need, should pick up a win versus the Buccaneers in week 2. But real quick, let's kick the cadaver a couple more times and talk about a very disappointing 38-20 loss to the Packers. Let's just start here. You got Bears stuff on your wall. You grew up a Bears fan. You're a Bears analyst. How are you doing spiritually, sports spiritually right now? How are you taking it right now as we're taping this on a Thursday?
Joey, I'm a weathered sports fan, and it just felt like the corpse of my dead fan body was just getting pelted with arrows. Did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yes, big fan. Yes.
So, okay, I mean, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's just kind of like, you know, the Battle of the Bastards, where you just see all those dead bodies and arrows are just coming in them, and they've been dead already, but still just like things are happening, and it's like, you can't hurt me anymore because I'm already dead. But that being said, this opener was probably the worst one in 20 years. The only thing worse I can remember is the 2003 debacle against the San Francisco 49ers, where they lost, I think it was 49-7. Everything since then has not been worse than what we saw on Sunday. And it's because, of course, we know it's the new era. We knew that there's a lot of hype around this team. This was supposed to be the start of a brand new, era. I said it earlier, just not only with the Bears, but for the Packers too. And look, for the first half, things weren't great, but at least you could kind of see what was happening with the Bears. Like, they were able to move the ball a bit. It wasn't that explosive, but it was effective. And things started to slow down a little bit with the Packers after that 4th and 1 issue where they couldn't get it and they gave them a short field. You saw that, okay, we're hanging with them. We can do something in the second half and we can make this a better game and pull away. And then what happens? Everything goes to crap. I mean, my God. The adjustments that the Packers made versus what the Bears couldn't make, and then just the barrage of screen passes after everybody knew they were coming, and just very little effectiveness. It was so disheartening because there was a complete breakdown at every single level. Player effort, out coaching, outsmarting, really, and just everything in between. The best part was really the national anthem with Jim Cornelison. After that, it was all downhill, unfortunately. So, it stunk. Like I said, I've sort of been here before, but at the same time, like, it's like, when are we ever going to get a break from Bears Packers domination? Because we thought we were going to get it after Rodgers. We thought we were going to get it when Justin Fields was coming into his own. We thought we were going to get it with all of the team. I mean, look, I have not heard so much. I can't remember if we can swear in here, but just blank talk. Go for it. Go for it. So much shit talking from the Bears all off season long, and to lay an egg like that, I don't ever want to hear them talk ever again until they start producing results.
You know, look, for context, we are going to note the time and the date and say that it's week 1. I'm not in the mode of it's only week 1 as an excuse. I'm right there with you. Yeah, the first half very much looked like Bears football of seasons past, of missed opportunities. A first down here and there, penalty brings you back. A poor construction or execution of a play design holds you back here and there, and you head into the half 7-6, not feeling great about yourself. But at the end of the day, Brendan, I think what's so disappointing, and real quick, the 2003, that was the Bourbonnais, right? That was the Bourbonnais year?
That was the first year of New Soldier Field.
First year New Soldier Field. Okay, forgive me. Yeah. 2019 also kind of rings a couple of bells for me where, Nagy's 2.0 offense, they didn't play anyone in the preseason. It was like this present that was going to be unopened, and you opened it up, and it was awful in that performance. I just want to talk to you really quick about the ready to play aspect. We talked a little bit before the pod. You said you went to a couple practices, saw a little bit of the training camp. Obviously, Bears fans didn't get a chance to see a lot of the number one starters throughout the course of the preseason, and I can't imagine. I can't imagine that this team was ready to roll. And when you say to a man, maybe individually they thought that they're ready to play, but as a cohesive unit, when you start pulling up that tape, and we're going to get into Justin Fields a little bit, but on every single play, it was somebody having some sort of disaster moment or poor execution, whether it was a Chase Claypool offensive line, Justin Fields decision making, Cole Kmet's block, whatever it was, this team was not ready to roll. How are you taking that right now? I know that in the NFL now we play a lot with, the NFL first month of the year is all preseason too, as well as these teams figure it out. But man, this was really, really difficult. The Chicago Bears tapped out in the second half. And I think it's more than just one loss. I mean, I'm not alone in saying that. So do you think that they're ready to play? And when I say ready to play, do you think that they can move that forward and get ready to play in week 2?
So the answer to the first question is no, they weren't ready to play. And you can't, effort is all within yourself. You got to be proud as a person, as a man, to get out there and give it your best when you're doing your job. In the practices that I saw at training camp, and I think I only saw 1 or 2 full padded practices. Some of them were kind of like lighter practices, but the effort was there. I can tell you right now, they were playing hard, they were playing smart, and guys were going after each other. We heard stories about just like the defense chirping the offense every single time that they made a turnover. That unit was really cohesive and together and bringing the energy, and the offense would respond too as well. They would have those better days, and guys were, really getting out of their cuts quick and like not loafing, as Matt Eberflus likes to say it. You saw the effort in those practices. And I know we singled out Chase Claypool, for example. He looked good in camp. That wasn't sort of a mirage or anything like that. He was playing hard. He was playing smart. He was giving it his all. I was at the practice where he did hurt his hamstring, so that was tough. And I figured okay, he's probably going to be out a little bit, but he was gaming and he was competing. And so for him to go from that, and even I'll shout out Jacob Infante for pulling this up. His old blocking highlights. I don't know if you saw that from Notre Dame where he was pile driving guys into the ground. Where was that Chase Claypool? He
was a tight end. He was a tight end in a former life. That is in the college style. Yeah.
Clearly, who could still run a 4.4. I mean, that physicality shouldn't go away. So the point is, we definitely saw instances where this team was competing and they were competing well against each other. And there were also good practices, particularly on the defensive side against the Colts, where they were making life very difficult for Anthony Richardson. So it's almost like these guys sort of bought into their own hype. They're reading the clippings. They're reading how much Bears Twitter is hyping them up before the season. And they're thinking, yeah, we are feeling good. We are feeling proud of ourselves. And then it feels like they had it in the bag. Like this was their game, but they didn't prepare like it. And the Green Bay was just simply more prepared and more ready to play. And, perhaps there's a breakdown between coaching and players. Maybe coaches aren't listening to players. Who knows? But it just, with some of the answers coming out of practice this week and just how hyped they were last week, this was a big dose of a reality check for them. Look, you are not there yet. You are not this team that's going to go from worst to first. Not yet, because clearly you have a long ways to go. And I think it's about time you realize that and start from scratch and say, let's get better starting this week and just build from there.
And unfortunately, you could see some of that reality set in as the game was happening. I just kind of remember I went back, junior high basketball, shout out, and also maybe a knock on. We used to play this school called Hillel Torah, and they weren't the most talented group of the world, but clearly we had this full court press that we would put on them, and they couldn't get the ball past half court. And next thing you know, it's 20-4, right? And you can and I once took an elbow to the face because a kid just got so frustrated by just the inability to really be able to do anything. And that was just there was a futility to what was happening with the Chicago Bears on Sunday. And there is a lot to improve on in such a short span of time. Just keeping it a little bit in the past and in the present just for right now. We mentioned Chase Claypool very quickly. Now, this was a guy, Courtney Cronin reported on it yesterday. There was some interesting public coded language used by Justin Fields today, singing. I know it was a direct question about Equanimeous St. Brown, but then when he was given the opportunity, he said all the things basically that Chase Claypool was unable to execute last Sunday. there is a question mark of whether Chase Claypool could even be active this week. What do you see happening right now? And do you think maybe it's better for this offense right now that EQ St. Brown is that perimeter blocker, is that extra guy on the outside for some of the stuff that the Bears want to do offensively?
It is. And to be honest, I was surprised last week when he was a healthy scratch. I knew that it could be a possibility with just how many receivers the Bears had and trying to get Tyler Scott integrated. They specifically went out and got Trent Taylor just to field punts. And that just goes to show you, it's so hard to have just a dedicated punt returner like that unless your name's Devin Hester. It's really not like a smart investment because it shows that your other wide receivers can't do it. So you knew that somebody, and of course, Velus Jones too was on that list of being inactive, but you knew that somebody was going to be on the outs. And unfortunately that was EQ. And for a team that is still so ground oriented, and especially with what Luke Getsy wants to do with the game plan of short passes, screen passes, and getting your receivers to block, that was a terrible move, because if you're going to make Equanimeous St. Brown inactive, then you have to get the ball to guys like Claypool, Mooney, and more deeper, because that shows like, look, we're not worried about like the short passing game or as much of the run game, like on the perimeters. We're worried about creating big plays with our wide receivers who are paid to make big plays catching. And we know that Equanimeous just doesn't excel at that. So I would be shocked if he's not active this week, knowing what happened. I still do think Chase Claypool is going to be active. I don't think a full benching is going to happen yet, because I think they still believe in him. I don't know what happened, because looking at the all 22, and I'm going to shout out I'm Bearing Down. I feel like every show I'm on, I shout out this guy who just picks every player, that who's the hot player and zeroes in on him for the all 22. You could see Claypool running his routes hard, and there were some blocking plays that he did do really well on. It just seemed like maybe he wasn't as prepared. There are certain moments it's like that in the NFL. If you're late on an assignment and a guy's coming at you, you're going to lose and you're going to look foolish. So I'm hoping, maybe this is just, me being naive, but I'm hoping he got the message and he's still going to be an active participant where they're going to try to get him the ball downfield, because that's what he excelled at. In Pittsburgh, it wasn't these screen passes. He did do a few end arounds, but he was a big play threat where you kind of matched him up against smaller corners and then made big plays down the field. So I'm thinking, I don't think Velus Jones is going to be active. I think maybe they unfortunately make Tyler Scott inactive, give him some time, and then bring up EQ and focus more on those screen passes so he can actually get into block, because I know we're going to talk about it. We know that Tampa likes to bring the heat, and that's going to be important for the game planning.
When we talk about depth and angles, I think across the board offensively, it was terrible. So when I'm not excusing what Chase Claypool is going on, but he suffered the same issue when we're talking about bad angles taken to get perimeter blocking. Yep. I think I watched one of the tapes when they tried to run a screen pass, and we have our running back going 2 yards deeper behind Justin Fields, who's already in shotgun, which is a terrible depth to take to catch a pass from anyway. So, I mean, it's these details that I think are scary. And we, the good news is you can clean those up a little bit. But the other thing that kind of concerned me a little bit, and I know it is week 1, but we work on training camp all month long. And what you try and do is, I think you try and figure out what iteration, these offensive pieces that you have, where do you start creating some of your bread and butter? What are your go-to plays? I always think of when Mitch Trubisky was in a jam, Allen Robinson, quick rub out 5 yards to the sideline, first down, all day long, over and over and over again.
Or Tariq Cohen, he get out of the backfield, yes. outrunning the linebackers for a first, everything like that. You're right.
You're right. So that's my question. And this is going to kind of pivot and transition over to just some Justin Fields talk of what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like. Outside of the screen pass, which I felt like they had to lean on heavily. I don't know if it was because they didn't trust their offensive line and they were just trying to get Green Bay off of them a little bit. What ended up happening was Green Bay actually ended up creeping up further to the line. Right. It worked in the wrong way. So do we have any bread and butter plays yet? And are those are the types of things that help a young quarterback like Justin Fields get that confidence early, get that rhythm early? So talk a little bit about what you like, what you didn't like from Justin Fields, and just how that's going to work maybe moving forward with some of this play calling and finding some of those bread and butter plays.
Yeah, so I think some of the bread and butter plays were more of the delayed screens to somebody like Khalil Herbert earlier on, where you kind of set him up, like eke him out of the backfield, do a little draw, and then pop pop the ball over. He's able to get 10 yards. And look, Khalil Herbert doesn't have the best hands, but I've been very, I guess, excited or impressed with what he's done in camp and in the preseason with improving those hands, because he's got speed and he's got quickness. That's kind of somebody, he's not Tariq Cohen, like we mentioned earlier, but he is somebody who's got enough speed to outrace the defender and get to that first down marker. And then let's look at number 2. DJ Moore, the guy who's been hyped all freaking off season. I'm sorry. He's number 2. He came over from the Panthers. He's got this amazing smile. Yeah, him.
That guy. He's like we DVR'd him. I remember I wanted to watch him this year. I hope we get a chance to do that soon. Yeah.
Look, 2 targets for your number 1 wide receiver, the person who has developed that chemistry and connection with Justin Fields all camp long, all off season long. We saw it at camp. It was very evident that DJ Moore was he was toying with defenders, and Fields was able to find him no matter what. He trusted him. And look, I put out a tweet earlier, and people may have misconstrued it by, what my wording was, but and by we, I mean the Bears fan base and NFL analysts out there, we've compared the DJ Moore acquisition to what the Bills did with Stephon Diggs and what the Eagles did with AJ Brown, right? Like, especially with Stephon Diggs, kind of a receiver who's good, could take that next step with a better quarterback. And then what happened for their first few games? Stephon Diggs gets, I think it was 8 catches for 80 something yards on like 9 targets. Pretty good, right? AJ Brown, 10 catches for 155 yards on 13 targets. Really trying to get these guys the ball. DJ Moore gets 2 catches on 2 targets for 25 yards. Like, that's unacceptable for what this guy brings and what he's shown all off season long. And you know what? When Fields actually targeted him, 2 first downs. We finally saw Fields throw a slant for the first time I can remember.
Yards after the catch, dare I say.
Yes, he was bottled up for a second on that out route, and he got another, I think 4 or 5 yards to get that first. And that's what DJ Moore does. He's a big physical guy. Give it to your best weapon and have him make plays. Trust him to go up and get the ball. Take those chances. That should be your bread and butter play. And I cannot believe that after 1 week, look, if he had, let's say, those 2 catches and 25 yards, but he had 7 or 8 targets, yeah, something went wrong, whether it was drops or bad, coverage or anything, but I'd still be encouraged that Fields was actually looking his way instead of just immediately dropping back and looking for the running back in the flat over and over again, especially in the second half. So if I'm Fields, I'm trying to get DJ Moore going on those quick passes, get those yards after the catch, open up the deep passes a little bit if you can afford the protection to make him get there, because we know DJ Moore can still make those deep ball grabs. And then, like I said, Khalil Herbert, continue to use him out of the backfield. I think he's a growing asset in terms of catching the ball. And I'd like to see Cole Kmet do a little bit. He was the safety blanket last year. We know he's not the most explosive athlete at the tight end position, but he should be counted on to do more with his frame and size in the middle of the field.
It's such a great point. Coming into this season, I talked with Corey a little bit, and I just thought what was interesting about this Bears offense that we don't normally see typically in a year in and year out basis. And you just mentioned them. There are 3 home run hitters on this team. Their names are DJ Moore, Khalil Herbert, and Justin Fields. And they all play different positions on the field. That should be enough to create some different looks, diversify the portfolio a little bit, and give this offense an opportunity to not just move the chains, but come up with some big boy NFL type gains moving forward. And I just, this whole, the play calling really confused me a little bit. And I guess maybe we'll wrap up on this before we move forward armchair. What do you think the relationship is with Getsy and Fields? I'm not trying to paint it as a bad relationship or a good relationship. It's a business. They have to work together. But do you feel like that they're on the same page? A lot of people go out there and they'll say Getsy doesn't trust Fields. The other side will say, Fields wants to call certain things that Getsy won't let him run, or maybe even further, why are we making EQ St. Brown inactive when this is one of my guys? Mm-hmm. What do you see that relationship is right now and just moving forward? Because already they've just had a really big misstep in week 1 after last season. Getsy's going to be head coach. Could Justin Fields win MVP? I mean, they don't look like that they're on the same page right now. How do you assess that right now?
You said it at the end. They're not on the same page. And I wrote it in my article for the takeaways. My biggest thing is I question the working relationship between these two, because if you look at the film, everybody wants to put it on Luke Getsy or everybody wants to put it on Justin Fields. And what I'm seeing is two guys who have made mistakes at different parts of the play. Fields makes the right read on a bad play design. And then Luke Getsy comes in with a good play design where guys are open. If Fields makes the wrong read or doesn't pull the trigger and throws it downfield, it's like these two just
trust, man.
No trust. They cannot line up and just be like, let's call the right play and hit that right read. There's very little times it's happened in the past. I'll even say, like, a few games going back to last year. It reminds me of, so I'm a musician. I play saxophone. It reminds me of this moment where I'm recording with some, we were in a band like long time ago, and we were doing horn recordings, and it was me and three other horns, and we were playing this very complicated rhythm. It was like this verse or whatever. And we kept having to redo it because every single one of us missed something in one recording. It was like me one time, and then the trumpet next time, and then the trombone next time. And we all looked at each other like, guys, we can't keep redoing this because our mouth's going to fall off. We need to get on the same page for once. And in my head, I'm like, that's Justin Fields and Luke Getsy. Just one of them is screwing up at one point or the other. There's no trust. There's just lack of rhythm with what they're doing and what they're calling. I think Luke Getsy, for what it's worth, I've said this a long time, he calls a great script. I think when he's scripting plays and he's getting things going early in the game, and I saw it last week too. It's just the whole, like, except for the 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 lack of push there. For the most part, I was pretty okay with what they were doing. It's after the fact and after halftime where things start to fall off the rails a little bit. And then in turn, that makes Justin fall off the rails. Like, how many passes downfield did you see? I'll even just put in the second half, because I just remember seeing screen. He was just afraid to even try to push it. And what maybe Fields was just trying to get out of there alive because he was so gun shy in the pocket. But my God, like the working relationship with these two needs some help. I want to get him with a therapist or something and just have him sit down and be like, what's going on with you, Luke? Let's figure out what's happening. What don't you like about Justin here, and vice versa? Let's come to some common ground and pull together a game plan that benefits both of us, because I think both of them can be good. It's just together, something's not clicking.
Okay, now Justin, you're going to fall back, and Luke, you're going to catch him. Okay, everybody, are we ready? Are we ready to do this? No, look, man, you're bringing up some great points. I mean, just if you want to get the ball out of his hands, just throw a damn slant. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, DJ Moore is great at separation off the line of scrimmage. He's a physical receiver. If you don't think Justin Fields trusts NFL open windows, just throw a slant, please. And at least you're moving the ball a little vertically instead of doing it horizontally. Man, so many thoughts. Alto sax,
alto and tenor, and actually soprano a little bit too. I got all three.
Good for you, man. I mean, nothing gets me more jacked than Jerry Rafferty, first of all. The saxophone is the voice of the 80s.
Yes.
Before we had the turntables, we used all saxophone, is what I like to say. But man, you're bringing up such a great point. And from a broader view, I think another one of the concerning things is something that we talked about last year was I just felt like the Chicago Bears defensively and even offensively at times were slow to make adjustments mid-game. We would always see them kind of adjust maybe at halftime. Take the Giants game, for example. Dayball's running that same counter, bam, bam, over and over, can't contain the edge over and over again. Where is the adjustment mid-game? It comes maybe a quarter too late. And a bad hallmark of this coaching staff right now, and this goes back to Matt Eberflus, is, again, we're not ready to go when the bell rings. We have to adjust, and now we have to adjust quickly into week 2 and pick up a win because we play the Chiefs in week 3. Again, there's just a little bit of a whiff of a slow at the switch vibe a little bit with this coaching staff of sniffing out problems or concerns, staying ahead of the curve and trying to fix things as quickly as you possibly can. And it's just kind of a concern for me right now. Before we get into keys, we're here with Brendan Sugrue here on BLEAV In Bears. I'm Joey Christopoulos. Corey's out this week. He'll be back next week. Before we get into keys, I did mention this to you before you hopped on. I want to just take a minute. We've talked a lot about, everyone's probably gripping the wheel a little tight listening to this Bears podcast right now. So I wanted to do a segment with you called Shiny Happy People. And shiny happy people is when me and you were just gonna really quick. We're gonna pull out a plate of meatballs. We're gonna pull out a turd shining kit, and we're just gonna shine a turd on this Bears 0-1 season right now. It's gonna feel very ESPN hot takey, but we're gonna do it for about 40 to 60 seconds and back and forth. Here's my first one. I'm gonna go first. Brendan, I'm gonna tell you something right now, okay? This is the best thing that ever happened to Chicago Bears, all right? You get punched in the mouth. And early on in the season, you have to look yourself in the mirror and decide what kind of football team you want to be. I think this is the best thing that happened to them, Brendan. I don't know about you. This is the best thing that could have possibly happened.
Okay, Joey, you know what? Look, last year we started 1-0 against the 49ers. We were riding high into week two.
Big.
We thought
too big.
Too big. We thought we were kings of the world, and then we got smacked on our ass in Green Bay once again, but this time it was week 2 after, and now there's less of the season left. We just moved up the ass kicking from week 2 to week 1, so now we have more time to adjust and get better. I'd much rather start 0-1 and go 1-1 and show, no, this is what we are now. This is the team we are. We're not these guys that, okay, we're going to get high after 1 week. No, we got kicked on our ass. We're going to get up. Talking's over. Talk is cheap. Now we're going to go down to Tampa, Florida without Tom Brady, and we're going to kick some ass down there because Baker Mayfield? No, he's just a mini Jay Cutler. That's all that is. But I love Jay Cutler.
And that's the thing. That's the thing, Sugrue, my friend, is that nobody sees us coming. Nobody knows.
Nope.
No need. We just showed them all of our bad plays. You know what? They haven't seen any of our good plays yet. So I think, you get punched in the mouth, you come back, and then that's where you get a big win. That was our Shiny Happy People segment for this week. That was fantastic. So far to this point, coming back to earth a little bit, this team is bullshit, and I'm really upset on both sides of the football. But let's roll it forward, right? Because look, we get a couple of days to wipe this taste out of our mouth. Bears, Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Let's just open it up like this. We're going to do some keys to the game. If the Chicago Bears are going to beat Tampa Bay and get back to 1-1 in week 2, what do you think right now is the biggest key to victory?
Stop the blitz.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop the blitz. Todd Bowles, we know that he loves to bring the heat. Last week, out of all the teams, Tampa Bay Buccaneers were second most in terms of blitz percentage. Of course, the Vikings, the team they played, were first. And we saw, if you watch the highlights, Kirk Cousins struggled. I mean, yeah, he was finding Justin Jefferson, but he was getting hit in the pocket. Antoine Winfield coming off the edges, creating strip sacks and just QB hits and making them uncomfortable. And look, we know that going back to 2021, remember Justin Fields, just kind of like that deer in the headlights look, how much that he was struggling against that defense. He threw 3 interceptions. He had like a quarterback rating of like 40. And I mean, I'm worried about that because although Tom Brady's gone, that offense is not what it used to be. That defense is still there. And that defensive coordinator, who's now the head coach, still has those same philosophies. You have to worry about Vita Vea. You have to worry about, like I said, Winfield coming off the edge. You got to worry about Devin White. Like, all of those guys are still coming for Justin Fields. And I'm worried now with, look, Fields said I want to pass deep more. I want to do that. I'm like, dude, that is great. Let's save that for week 3, because I think actually Luke Getsy's game plan for getting those screens out and maybe, creating those opportunities where you can get behind those blitzing defenders, that's actually going to work, I think, pretty well. And rolling Fields out of the pocket to evade some of those rushers, that's what we need to do. So if they can combat the blitz a little bit, I do think that this defense can at the very least match up well against what the Buccaneers are doing. Especially, I listed in my players to watch this week, the right side of the offensive line. So you got Cody Mock, the right guard rookie, and then Luke Goedeke. Luke Goedeke's not that great on right tackle, and Cody's still a rookie. So if you can bring that extra pressure and make Baker Mayfield a little bit uncomfortable, we know he likes to throw interceptions, and just keep the ball away from Mike Evans. He's their biggest playmaker, and he's the one that Mayfield has been targeting most. He led the team in targets this past week, so we know that he can carve up the Bears too. Last time in that 2021 game, some of these same defenders are on the same team when Evans went off for 3 touchdowns. So yeah, basically stopping the blitz. It sounds simple and easy, but it's going to be very difficult with this interior offensive line. And then just, attacking that right side of the offensive line, because I think that's their weakness.
Just quick follow up on that. I mean, so in your mind, is that Is that max protect? Are we going to see Mercedes Lewis out there with some chip help? I mean, because it sounds a little bit like that could lend itself to more horizontal play.
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to look like? What do you think the attack position is going to be for the Bears on that side? Because it looks like when they do max protect, at least gives Justin that pocket at least, and maybe win on some one-on-one matchups, and maybe he can break contain. But I mean, what do you think that's going to look like?
Yeah, the good news is I do think it's going to be more Mercedes Lewis, and he only had 5 snaps this past week, which is a little bit interesting. This is the reason you brought him in, for those max protect situations.
Tanyan too, excuse me, but Tanyan
Yeah.
I think was also in single digits on snaps too as well. He didn't get a lot of run, I don't believe.
No, he didn't, but I also know he had that back injury pop up, so I think that probably was a reason that he didn't see much. Yeah, I wanted to see more Bob Tunyon. I thought he's a decent mismatch in the end zone, but I digress. So yeah, more Mercedes Lewis, get him out on the edge, create those max protect opportunities, and then probably more chipping with running backs. So maybe that means Roshan Johnson and more Deontay Foreman get more run. I know that Roshan, let's talk about positives from Green Bay. I mean, Roshan Johnson, the way he plays and his running and just how his utilization late in the game, he looked like he was the only guy. Maybe he and Darnell Wright were the two guys that were like actually wanting to be there and like wanting to play hard. So I think Roshan's definitely earned more reps, and I think he gives them a better opportunity to get those pass blocks to give Justin a little bit more time. And the good news is we saw some of this last year in terms of just with how bad the offensive line was and what the Bears needed to do with that extra blocking tight end. But they didn't have the wide receivers to create those, to be able to throw up the ball and make big catches. You have that now with DJ Moore and a healthy Darnell Mooney. So in theory, this should be a better opportunity, even with those blitzers coming in. So yeah, I think definitely with Mercedes Lewis getting more play and then Roshan, those are going to be two keys. And yeah, hopefully you can get a little bit more of those crossers going, slants like we talked about, and just letting your receivers do the work, because we know they can.
I'm going to go with one of my keys for a Bears victory in week 2 is, honestly, I'm just going to kind of put it at a number. I'm going to put it at 14.5. And when I see 14.5, I think the Bears have to be over on the point total in the first half in that regard. If you talk to enough former NFL players, look, Bears fans, this is not cliche. Corey Wooten's talked about it before. When you play in Tampa Bay in that humidity and you're not used to it in September, it's going to be over 90 degrees there. It can zap you. It can zap you pretty quick and can have you sucking wind. And if you want to talk about a football team right now that, look, we've all admitted and agreed, both of us, that this team wasn't ready to play and has a bit of some cohesion issues, I'd like to think also conditioning might have a little something to do with that too as well. I'm not saying that they're in shape. I'm saying that I'm concerned that they might not be ready to play 60 minutes of football Sunday in Tampa Bay, and I don't think Bears fans should expect that either. So I think, for the sake of the psyche of this offense, for the sake of Justin Fields, for Luke Getsy, for everything that's just happened all this last week, and for the game itself and what's going to transpire in that second half, I think they got to get over 14 points in this first half. I think they got to build a little lead a little bit, something that Eberflus's teams haven't had a big chance to do. Play with that lead a little bit, protect, because I just think if we're going to win this game, I think it's going to come in the front half, and I think we might be holding on for dear life in the second half.
It's a really good point. And I've harped on the weather and the temperature since the schedule came out. When I saw that Tampa was in September, I'm like, oh no, this is bad. Like we remember the Miami game in 2018 when just guys were cramping up and they lost steam at the end. They just couldn't hang. And I know Miami's a little bit different with how they have their sidelines than Tampa, but it's still going to be very difficult in the humidity and the heat. So it's a very fair point. And I believe I looked up the stat that the Bears haven't won in Tampa Bay in September or October since the mid-90s. I think they're 0-6 since then. And part of that has to do with the heat and the humidity. It's tough.
No, and look, if we want to play the game, Bears fans, which we do every year when we pull up the schedule and we go, oh, we're getting the Arizona Cardinals in December, that's a W. We have to play the same card about going somewhere where it's going to be crazy hot and humid, like a place like Tampa Bay in the middle of September. So that really concerns me. What else you got? You got one more key before we do final score prediction? What's it going to take for the Chicago Bears to come out with a W this week?
I mean, we talked about the blitz. We talked about trying to attack the offensive line.
Give me a key. Give me a key for Justin Fields specifically. Like, what do you want to see from him, and what specifically is going to be a key for him to, I don't know about unlock something, but to get back to baseline and start getting that confidence back. Because I think reading the field a lot of time does come down to confidence, and I don't think he has it right now.
Yeah. Look, it sounds simple, and I know it's not, but just rip it. Rip it, man. We know that Justin Fields loves to hold the ball in the pocket. He wants things to develop. Maybe he's a little unsure. Yeah. Like, look, we saw JT O'Sullivan's breakdown.
I did the whole hour, dude. What am I doing to myself? Oh my God. I drank during. I
should have done this earlier. I sped it up. I did like 1.5 times. And you still get the whole thing. You just can process it a little bit faster. But hearing JT Sullivan say it over and over, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Throw it. No. Yes. So look, we talked about it. The Bears have these playmakers. Justin, you want to throw it deep. You want to trust these guys. I saw it in practice. I swear to God, I saw it with my own eyes. He's dropping back 2 steps, go. 2 steps, go, and just hitting those with confidence and with accuracy too. Like, look, we know he's not going to be perfect. Things are going to happen. Passes are going to get broken up. But like, he wasn't giving the defense chances to react, or he was giving his receivers just opportunities to make those plays, to go up and get it. And they went up and get it, especially when it comes to DJ Moore. So just be able to make those quick 3-step drops and just throw it. All right. Yeah. Trust your guys to make plays. And you know what? If it's an incompletion, it's an incompletion. But when you're throwing screens that are, you mentioned it, 4 yards behind an already shotgun Justin Fields, that helps nobody. You complete the pass, but then it's 2nd and 15 now. And now, like, you might as well have just taken a sack, really, because that's what you're putting the offense into. And now you open yourselves up to more mistakes and more opportunities to make bad plays. So that's what I want to see. But look, I got to say, I'm worried about it, because we've been saying that now for the last year. Like, just don't be afraid to throw it, and don't be afraid to kind of like get that out and anticipate the throws. But we'll see. I mean, I'm going to keep hoping, man, because we got to see it sooner or later.
Yeah, look, I think he's coming up on, I think, either his 29th or 30th career start as an NFL quarterback. When I hop on other people's pods and different shows and they ask me about Justin Fields, there's everything. There's nothing that I can say that I don't like about him. He literally has everything that you can want in a quarterback. But again, I kind of liken it like this, and every quarterback goes through this. This is the bridge every quarterback has to cross, and it's that second, third progression and that mastery of the vision of the field of an offense. Mitch played well, could not cross that bridge. You either do it or you don't. Even I feel like Kirk Cousins is a guy that has crossed that bridge, and that is why he has had a solid, substantial career. Crossing the bridge does not make you a Pro Bowler. It doesn't mean that you're winning a Super Bowl, but it does mean that you are an NFL quarterback for a long stretch. And to this point, I don't think Justin Fields has crossed that bridge yet, and he's still there. And I hope that he does, but not everybody makes it, right? And this is what we're trying to find out right now. Maybe my final key, and then we're going to get the final score, is, look, X's and O's, what can we say? Like, schematically, it all looked terrible. I think if we improve here and there, no shit, it's across the board all over the place. So I am going to, forgive me, I'm going to stay a little bit more emotional on this side, because I think this was an emotional, embarrassing week for the Chicago Bears. And when we're talking about Justin Fields, and when we're talking about that bridge that he needs to cross, that's what he needs to do with his game. But we hear a lot about Justin Fields, the leader and the person right now. And I'm not advocating that on the first play he goes and tries to truck a linebacker around an edge. But I am saying, though, that we need one person on the offense to be a tone setter. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, and I don't mean it to be, it doesn't have to be demonstrative. I don't need you grabbing people's face masks or whatever. But like you were talking about, get out there, bop, 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 throw the ball. Like 1, 2, 3, show some urgency, rip the ball, get a little passion going, and just have it try and feed and matriculate to the rest of the offense somehow. Because, I mean, we need to turn the page. The quickest way that you turn the page is, I think, is from your leaders, whether it is offense or defense. I don't care what sport it is. The quickest way to forget about, oh, man, we suck, is to watch your leader kind of drag you and just show you the things that brings you back a little bit to the light. And maybe this sounds a little meatball or something, but I mean, man, Justin Fields, if you are the leader of this team, if you're the captain of this team, be the tone setter, man. and just show us that early on, we're still going to make mistakes. This stuff is not going to look clean and tight all the time. It probably will be a couple of weeks. This whole month, I think, is going to be choppy at this point right now. But there's some things that he can do to bring us back to that baseline a little bit, get him back believing a little bit. And I think that might be one of the keys to the game. And I think that's something Justin Fields can do quite easily in week 2 if it's not reading that second, third progression.
So I have a real you brought up the whole leadership aspect and the emotional you got to show it on the sideline. You got to juice your guys up. I mean, we've heard all these guys talk about bring the juice. All right. Well, I don't see no Sonny D on that sideline because I didn't see the juice on Sunday. But now we heard that Jaquan Brisker texted Fields and said, hey, man, we got to bring the juice. Like, you do, I do. And this is also kind of on the heels a month ago or so when Darnell Mooney's talking about the quarterback's got to do it. I know he wasn't calling him out, but he said it in the press conference. We know that Fields has to be that guy to kind of get us juiced up. So are we kind of concerned that Fields just has that, I'm going to say the name, not in the same way, but that Jay Cutler type where he brings the leadership in his own way. And it's not that big rah-rah type style and galvanizing guys on the sideline, because it just sounds like guys are wanting that from him. What do you think?
Tough to say, man, right? I mean, if you roll the clocks back a year ago to week 1, who's leading the team down a flying V and jumping onto his chest? And one of the greatest, honestly, whether Justin Fields works out or not, it's one of the more iconic Bears shots we're ever going to get in our lifetime. And when you see something like that, that's when I go, oh, man, this dude's a leader. And when we see the Commanders game and then the next week we kick the Patriots' ass and Justin Fields looks the way that he does, when people say show me the tape of Justin Fields playing well, put on the Patriots game, okay? Yeah. And then call me back. I mean, that's the stuff that we saw. And last year also, when we see them down by 8, or they take the lead, Justin Fields takes the lead against the Vikings, they come back down and score because Kirk Cousins was 45 for 45 that day, and he still got the ball back and took them to midfield if it wasn't for that Smith-Marset fumble. So I saw stuff where Justin Fields said, screw it, I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to get us as close as we possibly can. And I think sometimes as a leader, what I kind of felt from Justin Fields was I felt like he kind of bailed on some situations early in the game. You see Nate Davis whiffed once. Okay. Nate Davis whiffs twice. Oh shit. Nate Davis whiffs again. I can't trust this guy. I throw a screen pass and Claypool's got his hands up, you know what I mean? And he goes, all right, do I trust this screen pass now? And I think that's a little part of it, especially when, from a leadership aspect, you still are assessing the areas of trust in your offense at different times. And you don't have to trust everyone to be a leader. You know what I'm saying? That's a part of it. And I do felt like he kind of loosened up on the rope a little bit. And I think the only way to try and do it is some of that tone setting, be active, be someone, sometimes when you see a guy hitting everybody's hands coming off the sideline or whatever, it can seem rah-rah or performative, but there is a part of it too that also says, hey, I'm looking at each and one of you. You know what I'm saying? Stay on your P's and Q's, and there's a part of it. And I'm with you, man. I did not see it in week 1. I do think it's in there though. And I think that's going to be one of the keys to the game is a guy like Justin Fields saying, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Do it. Just do what you need to do, and I didn't mean to single Nate Davis out. I mean, there was a lot of people that sucked on the offensive line, but when you watch that tape, the dude straight whiffs multiple times.
Well, he ran out of gas too. I mean, I thought he was like the Bears as a whole. I thought he was okay in the first half, and then he just really struggled in the second half. But look, that's what happens when you miss pretty much every practice in August.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, for sure, dude. I mean, and that's going to be really tough for him on Sunday. I'm terrified for him. And Darnold Wright's a rookie playing his first road game in conditions that maybe he's not super used to either. I mean, I know he played at Tennessee, so maybe we get a little humidity down in Tennessee, but I don't know if it's Tampa proper.
Well, yeah, and he's also playing in his first true road game too. And that was another thing we talk about camp. I know we're kind of going off here, but Darnell Wright had a ton of false starts. The fact that he really didn't have many penalties on Sunday, I was so thankful for, because I think he had 5 false starts one practice, and 2 of them were back to back. And I'm like, dude, come on, you got to get it together. So when you're hot, when you're humid, and you're playing in, an opposing stadium with more crowd noise than you're used to in a long time, that can happen. So hopefully that's, he's able to stay on those P's and Q's and keep from making those mental mistakes.
Yeah, that's a great point. I also noticed Cole Kmet started kind of cheating on the snap a little bit because I think he kind of knew he was getting his ass beat, so that was a little bit of a concern too as well. We can go on and on, my man,
Yeah.
but like, as you said, and you said it correctly before the pod, you said it during this time, is that I really think the only thing that you can do is move forward right now. The Chicago Bears have a game to play on Sunday, so Brendan, give it to me. What is your final score? Bears versus Bucs, week 2. Who comes out on top?
Okay, so before the season, I had this as a surefire loss, basically for a lot of the reasons we talked about, the Bulls defense, the heat and humidity, but I also had the Packers winning. And what I thought was going to happen, I'm sorry, the Bears beating the Packers in week 1. So I thought this was going to be one of those letdown games where things were going to look really, really bad. But after this week, they need a win. With all the noise coming out, with all of the fact that everybody's kind of looking themselves in the mirror, that we need to put up or shut up because things might be happening. Might be a powder keg that's starting to, the fuse is starting to go. So I don't know why, I don't know how, but I think that they're going to find that way to galvanize to get this win. The Bears haven't started 0-2, I believe, since 2017. That's a long time ago. For as bad as they've been able to kind of, no matter who the coach is, they've been able to keep pace and at least start the season at 500 after 2 weeks. So I don't know how it happens. I'm not going to lie, whether they pick up the blitzes or are able to kind of get that short passing game going effectively versus Tampa and making Baker Mayfield actually play quarterback while continuing to shut down that run game, which wasn't good for Tampa last week. We should mention that. I think it's going to be 23-21 Bears. And I think we're all going to be looking at ourselves saying, how the hell did we get out of there with the win?
I'm not that far off from you. It's part of my concern, but I'm feeling right now, I'm sticking to one of my keys. I'm going to say the Chicago Bears win 20-19.
Okay.
I feel it plays out a little something like this. I want to believe and think, after being embarrassed, that the Chicago Bears come out. I think they put up 17 first half points. By hook or by crook, 2 touchdowns, 1 field goal. I think they're up somewhere in the area of like 17-6 at halftime. And then, buddy, like, buckle up. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that they run out of gas in the second half. I think that, they get to 20 points. And I think that slowly but surely Tampa Bay keeps creeping in. I'm just not, I'm with you on Mike Evans. I'm just not buying. Look, Baker's accuracy has always kind of bothered me. And I think his accuracy, I think that gap right there is enough to kind of shore up, I think, what the Bears are going to have to deal with on the defensive line. So I think the secondary has an opportunity to play well, even without Kyler Gordon. I'm thinking 20-19. One of my concerns is a little bit of, get ready, Bears fans, that if this works out the way that I'm saying it is, we get a W, we go to 1-1, but we are going to still be talking about what the hell went wrong in the second half, as opposed to maybe shining some light on what went well in the first half. And I think no matter what, I hope that we win. I think we're still going to have plenty of questions and things to be upset about or be concerned about heading into week 3 against Kansas City. That's kind of where I'm landing.
Yeah, spot on with just the fact that, like, this team does start out well with the scripts, like we talked about, but then loses gas, especially with the heat and humidity. You're onto something. I really, really like that. And I could definitely see us looking at each other kind of like, okay, we got the win. We're back.
But what about that second half?
Yeah, but now we also still have concerns. Oh, and Patrick Mahomes and a healthy Travis Kelce and a freshly paid Chris Jones are waiting in the wings.
Do we have to play that game? Oh, we do? We have to? Okay.
And Matt Nagy's on the other sideline too.
Looking so tan. My wife was watching it the other night and she was like, what the hell is he doing looking so tan? He's in Kansas City. What is that? Makes no sense to me.
That's I have Patrick Mahomes, so I'm going to take some extra time and just work on myself for a little bit, and then we'll figure it out.
Brendan Sugrue, man, we got to get you out of here, man. Thank you so much for joining BLEAV In Bears. Such a pleasure, man. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. We got an opportunity to interact here and there on Twitter a little bit. I'm so happy that we finally got it together and come on. I'm so excited for you, all the good stuff that you've been doing. I love seeing you on TV, man. Just know that I'm rooting for you super hard. The future is bright, man. Thank you so much for being generous and coming on with your time. Do me a favor, please plug all of your shows, BearsWire, your Twitter, anything that the good people listening right now can check out your great work.
First off, Joey, thank you so much, man. You are awesome. Like, you do such a good job with this. You're so fun to interact with. You know, I wish Corey was here to meet him, but I'm really
later in the season, baby. We're gonna bring you back.
Yeah, right. But no, I'm such a big fan of you, and seriously, like, this was such a pleasure. Like, if you're saying the same things about me, like, your star has to be shining as well, because you do this very, very well. So and I'm not BSing you, but no, definitely follow me on Twitter at Brendan Sugrue. That's SUGRUE. Check out my work at BearsWire.com. You can follow at the BearsWire. And then, yeah, the Bear Down Chicago podcast. We record every Sunday after the game. Myself, Ryan Dangle, Jack Wright, Patrick Sheldon, and Logan Bradley will be reacting to the game. Hopefully a better game, because I'm telling you, man, some of those guys on Sunday were like, I don't want to do this anymore. It was that bad. And I'm like, okay, let's not. This is bad. I want to keep talking Bears with you guys. But no, yeah, it's a good time. So always appreciate it, and always appreciate the support and the back and forth, man. It really means a lot.
I can't wait to bring you back, man. Thank you so much, and I'll bring you back on better circumstances. I promise. And if not, we'll be talking about a #1 pick, and then we'll just go from there. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, whether it's on SiriusXM, wherever you find your podcast. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube or with our presenting YouTube channel, Sports Talk Chicago. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be well, be safe. Please be good to each other. This weekend, look, it's week 2. Bears got to win. Of all the times of the year to say bear down, this is the time. Thanks for tuning in.